as well as and now, so basic services, health and wellness, and housing will report to John Rook. So this is our new fiscal year. It's just started a couple of days ago. And it's the time of year that we do evaluate salaries, we evaluate compensation, and the board of directors over the last couple of years has been really committed to making sure our salaries get to the average for the industry, and we've accomplished that. We accomplished that this past year with the raises that were given in October. So for this year, we don't want to fall behind, but at the same time, I'm sure all of you recognize that resources are limited. So, so you will be receiving a cost of living allowance. Now, before you get too excited about it, cost of living in Alberta this year is just under 1%. So, but you will be receiving a 1% increase on your next paycheck. So, hopefully, that's at least an encouragement that we're not falling behind in our wages. The other thing that's happening, which is potentially a little more impacting, but also concerning, hopefully in a positive way. But as most of you remember, one of the ways we measure our culture and the strength of our culture is through the Best Christian Workplace survey. And there's one question on the Best Christian Workplace survey that says that my organization, the Mustard Seed, rewards top performers. We typically score pretty low in that one. And so we made a commitment that we need to do something about that. And so we have instituted what we call performance bonuses. And we've identified it as 10% of the workforce. So it's eligible for up to 25 people in the Mustard Seed every year. So we've asked directors and managers to nominate individuals from their department. I've asked them to send me your performance reports, your annual performance reviews, with that recommendation, and then I have looked at all of those and then made some decisions. So if you're mad at anyone, you need to be upset at me, okay? Because ultimately I'm making the final decision. But by the end of April, you will be notified if you will be receiving one of those performance bonuses. And if you don't receive one, I would encourage you to go to your director, go to your manager, and say, okay, I didn't get a performance bonus. What do I need to do this next year in order to be considered for one of these bonuses? So we hope it's a way of acknowledging that we have great people that work here, and there are certain people that just go above and beyond. And so with your performance reviews, if you see significantly exceeds on a regular basis in your performance review, then that would be an indicator that you would be eligible for this bonus. Anyway, so that could be very good news for some of you and maybe not so much for the rest of us. Anyways, next week we're preparing for Easter. And so the decision has been made that we are going to focus on each geographical location independently. So if you're in Edmonton, then you guys are going to be doing a special Easter event next Wednesday. If you're in Red Deer, the same. Same will be true of the shelter. Same true of the shelter, and then here downtown. So it should be a very special time as we collect in perhaps a little smaller groups and have our faith connect together as we celebrate Easter. Today's speaker, sorry Dave, this is taking so long, but our speaker today is David McElveen. David is the Director of Community Development, is that correct, at Boardwalk. And most of us have had dealings with Boardwalks. They've provided housing for many of our clients over the years. What most of you don't know is that David has also had a past. He was a pastor for how many years? A few years. He doesn't want to age himself, so we're excited to have David come, and let's give him a warm mustard seed welcome.
I think I'm going to use the lapel mic. Is that one off? Did we get that right? Okay. Cool. Thanks for the introduction, Steve. If you want me to use this one, is this one still on there? Yeah, it is. Oh, okay. Well, my notes are over there, so it's going to be a short talk. That's the good news. So, I'm David McElveen, and I do work at Boardwalk. I've been there quite a few years now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that and a little bit about kind of my journey. I wasn't really sure what the topic was supposed to be today. So when I asked Steve's assistant, Kathleen, she said, just talk about your spiritual journey. And I thought, okay, well, I guess that means the topic is me. So there's certain topics I really like to talk about. And sometimes it's me, and sometimes it's not. I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, there's times when we feel better about who we are, and sometimes we don't feel as good about who we are. But I actually quite like public speaking, and but I do find it easier if I like the topic. So I'm going to have to get my glasses on to read my notes. It's been a long time since I was a pastor. I've been at Boardwalk 18 years, and my public speaking went from about once or twice a week to once or twice a quarter every 3 months. And so over those years, my eyesight has deteriorated to the point where I still forget that I can't see my notes anymore, and I can't just kind of casually walk over and read them. So if we were thinking about ourselves and thinking about talking about yourself in front of a bunch of people, like kind of what I'm doing right now, you might get really excited about that. You might not. It kind of has a lot to do with how we feel. And the way we feel is real. Feelings are real, but they're not really an accurate reflection of reality sometimes. They're just the way we feel. They're real, but they don't really reflect us. I think that if I have a degree in biblical and theological studies, and there's probably a time where I could rattle off a bunch of texts that would be able to support that thesis. But right now I'd have to go to Google, and in 2 or 3 minutes I could probably come up and do the same thing, and find all those texts that show us stories, biblical stories of people whose feelings were real, but they weren't really a good reflection of what was really the reality of what was going on in their lives and around them. So I had a pastor a number of years ago. I really liked the way he taught, and one time we were meeting, it was a Sunday afternoon, and I said that to him. I said, "Oh, Mark, you really just knocked it out of the park today. That was so good," and told him why. And he said, "Really?" I said, "I didn't think that at all. But one thing I've learned is that how I feel on a Sunday afternoon has nothing to do with what happened on Sunday morning, what really happened there. It just all has to do with how I feel about it, but nothing to do about, the reality of how I guess the message impacted people." So I'm going to be real with you. I've had a tough week, but I'm not going to tell you about my problems. But I have had a tough week, and sometimes we have tough weeks. They're pretty insignificant, my problems, if I compare them to others. So I guess this morning what I wanted to do was try to give us a couple of tools on how to get out of that, focusing on the way we're feeling and try to get back into some of the reality of what's going on around us. I'm married. I have 4 kids, 2 grandkids. One of my children is currently serving as a volunteer in a refugee camp just off the coast of Turkey. And she works in Calgary and then saves up money and goes and blows it and does things like that. And so, and then she comes back and asks me, oh, my car is breaking down and I don't have money to fix it. And, well, she wrote me this, not me, but she wrote our family and a bunch of people that are on her kind of short mailing list. It's great, this week I got this. It's great to see the Greek government is making, this is an excerpt from a note she wrote, and it helped me understand and put into perspective some of my tough week. It's great to see the Greek government's making decisions to improve the camp. However, even with all these improvements, there's still a sadness and a hopelessness here. We still deal with lots of cases of depression, attempted suicides, cutting, abuse, human trafficking, and many other heartbreaking things. I spent my whole shift yesterday sitting with a young Iranian woman who'd been living in the other camp with her abusive husband and mother-in-law. She returned to Moria, that's the camp my daughter's working in. She returned to Moria alone, seeking housing. The camp my daughter works in is single men only. Seeking housing and asking to be deported back to Iran just to get away from her abusive husband. Through many tears and with the help of Google Translate, she was able to tell me her story and we were able to find her a safe place to live. I thought, wow, my week doesn't seem so bad now, at that point. I thought, what does it take for someone to leave everything behind? I mean, we all know what's going on in the Middle East. At least, we just know a little bit of it from the news. We see excerpts of, there was another terrible thing that happened in Syria yesterday. This particular woman wasn't in Syria, or maybe she was, I don't know. Her nationality is Iranian, but I don't know where she came from exactly to get to this little island off the coast of Turkey. But in any case, she risked her life to get there. We hear about the terrible, terrible things that are going on back in the Middle East, and yet her week was so bad, she wanted to go back there. That's a bad week. That's a bad week. And so I learned this thing about comparing ourselves with others. And in some ways, there's this idea, I don't really know what it's called in actual psychology, but it's relative psychology. And it's like, when you're a real estate, I used to work in real estate, by the way. I'll tell you a little bit more about my life as we go along, but I work for Boardwalk now, and that's the real estate business. But before that, I was a missionary and a pastor for a while, and before that, I started off in real estate sales and management and development, and did that kind of in my 20s. Pastor and other stuff in my 30s, and in my 40s went to Boardwalk, and here I am in my late 50s, still Boardwalk. That's the short version of my life. But in the real estate business, if you wanted to sell a house to someone, and you really wanted to sell them this house over here, one good way to get them to buy that house, and I'm not saying real estate agents necessarily do this, but I think it has been done, is to show them 3 houses. You show them the really crappy house A, really crappy house B, house you want to sell them, which seems a lot better, and relatively, it is. It seems like it's the best house we saw, so let's put an offer in on that best house. And so we don't know if that's really a great house or not, but it's kind of using that relative psychology idea to get people to make decisions. And in some ways, using that relativeness of looking at, gee, what's going on in my life right now? Is it really that bad? That sort of brings us to a new point. And the new point is kind of getting to a place of being really kind of a little bit thankful. Like my spot that I'm in today is that, I'll tell you what my big problem is. I got a $4,000 car repair. You know what? I'm in a position in my life and career where that doesn't break me, but it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. Like who wants to spend $4,000, even if you can find the $4,000 somewhere? Nobody wants to. And then you go through all the other things. This car, oh man, is it going to start going downhill from now? Is there going to be another 1,000 in 6 months, or should I sell it? No, that's such a hassle. Now I got to go find a new car, and all my problems are so terrible. And you start to realize that they're, compared to the lady in Moria, relatively, I got a lot to be thankful for. And it's kind of a good place to get to if you can get there. And so that was one of the things I just wanted to share with you. My week starts to look pretty good. I learned that, by the way, I learned that idea, that relative psychology idea, from a guy named Charlie Munger, who is, he's a 90-year-old investor, really what he is. He's a partner of Warren Buffett, and that's kind of what he's most famous for. But I started to read a little bit about him, and I realized he's a really smart guy. You know, he graduated from law at Harvard, and then he quit that to become an investor, and now he's this, you know, really successful, super wise guy. And he's read all this psychology, and he's looked at he applies everything to investing, but you can take that out and apply it to your life. And you can say, you know what, here's a way not to make a bad decision. And so I started to read a lot about him, and I thought, you know what, that idea of just the comparing really holds true throughout life. Thankfulness kind of comes by a dose of reality and then looking back. So the $4,000 car repair seems like a lot of money, and then I looked back and I thought, oh, you know, there's milestones in my life when we were missionaries. Thinking back about 25 years ago, we lived by faith, and the way it worked with our agency was, if anybody understand the concept of faith missions? Yeah, if you do, just sort of let me know you're still alive out there. Fantastic. Okay, so you know you don't really have a salary. By the way, those of you that are getting less than 1% increase, you're getting more than anybody at our company is getting. So just so you know, essentially increases are few and far between in Calgary right now. I think it's a good thing to be thankful for. So just as an aside. So getting back to, so 25 years ago, living as a faith missionary, and money would come in at the end of every month, and that's what we used on to live the next month. And so married with 2 little kids at the time, and the money varied from month to month. So one time the money comes in, and it was always a small check, by the way, but one month it was particularly small. And before that, I'd worked in real estate development, and I was used to actually making, I wasn't rich, but I was used to making money, you know, and not really thinking about that last $40 that month or whatever. Anyway, we did our budget based on this very small check, and we said, you know what, if we cut down this, if we don't drive the car, except on these 4 occasions coming up this month that we know we have to use it, and if we cut back on this and cut back on that, all we need is $20, and we'll get through the month. We'll pay our rent, we'll pay our bills, we'll have food on the table for the kids, and we'll get to the end of the month. $20. I mean, I'm not wealthy, but I've lost $20 in my jeans sometimes and forgot that it was there until it came out of the wash. $20 is not that much money, but that's where we're at. So we thought, well, we better do something about this $20. We pray for our $20. We don't tell anybody. We don't tell any of our friends. We don't tell anybody else in the mission. And about 8 or 9 days later, check the mail, and somebody's left about $80 in 20s for us. That's fantastic. Now we're going to make it. You know, so that's another week and a half later, and you know what? We were off. We were not going to make it by $20. We needed more than $20. We were through the 80. And I got a call saying, hey, there's someone connected with our mission coming into Calgary, and they need a place to stay. Can you pick them up at the airport? And I'm just thinking, that's gas. And can you put them up for the night and give them breakfast and take them back to the airport the next day to make their connection? Yeah, sure, okay. So we do that. And the next morning, this lady leaves, we take her to the airport, and we go in, she left us $20. A $20 bill. That's fantastic. A couple of days later, somebody walks up to me and says to me, you know, I just had it on my heart to give you $20. I thought, holy mackerel. Like these $20 are just rolling in, and pretty soon it's like enough money to get through the month. And so I look back on that, and I think my $4,000 today, like I said, it's not going to make me and break me, but ultimately I have somebody that's a little more wealthy and can take care of me better than I can take care of myself. And I can be thankful, and I can look back and say, you know what, these milestones in my life, they really are something that are meaningful to me. And they're meaningful to me as I walk out tomorrow, and whether I have money in the bank or I have to use a line of credit or whatever, or use my credit card. I mean, when we needed $20, I didn't even have a credit card at that time. Or maybe I did, I can't remember, but we weren't using it, that's for sure. In any case, so these things really become really important milestones. I gave my life to Christ when I was 23 and working in the real estate business. Got married, worked in the real estate business and development for a few years after that. But I always wanted to be a missionary. Did that for 10 years. Used a mortgage that we held back on a property that I'd owned and kind of financed us through that time. And that was over. Got down to the totally living by faith. And after a while, thought, I don't know if this is really for me. Planted a church. I go to church and think church is good, but did not think it was the right place for me to be on the staff of a church, getting paid by the people who are sitting like you, look just like you guys look this morning, and thinking, you know what? I think for me, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but for me, it wasn't the right place for me. So I decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore. But at the time, I had this job with a social service agency, and I was kind of working part-time for them and part-time for the church. Met with the elders, said, you know what, I'm going to stop. I'm not taking a salary anymore. It's not right. Take that money and we'll put it into missions, and we'll pay our worship leader who's a missionary and needs the money, and just split it up there. Is everybody okay with that? Yeah, fine, yeah. So I go to my social service agency, who's always been saying, can you take more hours? I really need you to do more hours. And I said, yeah, I'm in. And I was off to a little mission trip that I was going to do with some friends of mine, to me and Mark. And we went there and came back, and the agency called me and said, yeah, about those extra hours, the issue is we just lost our contract. So instead of going from like 40 to 35, or from 20 to 35 or 40, it's going to go from 20 to 0 next month, and then every month thereafter. Okay, well, that was bad timing on my part, I thought. So I thought, you know what, I got to get a job, and I'd already decided I'm not going to get paid for ministry anymore. That just wasn't what I wanted to do. Get a job. So I thought about it. I thought, well, I know how to do real estate. So I called a couple people I knew who had I did real estate, by the way, back in Winnipeg. We moved here in the interim. So I called a couple of friends of mine who were in the business here and talked to them. And one of them, a good friend of mine who's been a lifelong friend, since we were 18, we lived together in a house and used to party it up. We both came to Christ at about the same time and changed our lives. And we're in the real estate business. Anyway, he's in Calgary now and was then, about 18 years ago. Called him up. Let's go for lunch. So we went for lunch and we talked about it. And on the napkin, I'm telling him my story about how I want to work in the business. And he was the president of a real estate company here, very successful. He said, well, I'll hire you. Like, I know you can do the job. But I just have to ask you honestly, do you want to get up and be in a suit in downtown Calgary at 6 a.m. every day? Because you know that's the gig. I said, yeah, I know that's the gig. I said, I do not want to do that at all, frankly. And he said, well, we got to figure something else out. Yeah, okay. So we chatted a little more. He looked out the window, and he saw a sign on the top of a building. And he said, you know what? That could be a sign from God. I said, really? It says Boardwalk. Because I met the guy that owns that company or something. I don't really know him, but here's his name. Phone him up. So I phone him up, get his voice message. It took me like 3 weeks to phone him because I did not really want to go and work in the real estate business at all. Finally, I had no job, and I thought, I got to do something. So I phoned him. And he gave me, or I got through to his voicemail. I thought, good, I've done my part. I've made the call. He didn't answer. Fantastic. I got his voicemail. So I will leave a short voicemail for him explaining who I am and what my situation is. His name's Sam. Hi, Sam. My name's Dave McElveen. I used to work in the real estate business, and I was a missionary for a little while, and now I'm looking to get back into work. And, if you think there's a place for a guy like me, feel free to give me a call. Number is blah, 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 blah. Hang up. Perfect. Like 3 hours later, his assistant calls me. Says, Sam really wants to meet you. This is about March the 1st, call it. I said, oh, okay. Great. When? Well, let's see. Let me look at his calendar. How is it looking for you on March the 24th? It's 3 weeks later. I've got no job. I said, well, let me check, got that afternoon booked off. I'm going to be in my underwear watching Oprah, but I could probably make it in, you know. So anyway, I go and I have this chat with him, and he says, I don't have a job for you, but I just wanted to meet you, and we talked. He says, I got an idea. We talked about an idea. We put together a job. So it took a while. We had a couple other meetings, and over time, this job sort of came together. Since that time, I've had the opportunity to house dozens of refugees who came over and had no place to stay through Catholic Immigration Society. There was no units available, but we just happened to be in the midst of a big redevelopment, and so we rented them all these units, cheap, really cheap for what they could afford, way under market rent at that time. When the Calgary Plan to End Homelessness 10-year plan came about 8 years ago, they needed somewhere some market landlord to try the idea of housing first. Just give it a try. So I went out for dinner with these two people and these two guys, and they told me about what it was. I said, will Boardwalk do it? I said, well, let me just get it straight here. So you want us to rent our market units, renovated market units, at like 100, 150 below market, okay? And they're for people who need housing. That's good. We like to do that. We want to do our part. And you're going to guarantee us that they have bad credit, no landlord reference, are probably addicted, and are likely have also at least one psychiatric issue in their life, and no job. Okay, so can we start small? Can we try 1 or 2? And they said, no, we got to start with 10. We need 50. We'll start with 10 and then go to 50 if it works. Okay. So I said okay, as in, okay, let me take this back. And talked about it with our senior executive. And they were all, okay, like what's going on? We didn't really get it, but we sort of said, well, we trust the people that are telling us, give it a go. We did it. So I've had a chance to work in all these great things along the way. Been on the board of the Homeless Foundation for a number of years. I'm not any longer. Was able to coordinate the repurposing of about 400 units to Home Space Society, which is now the real estate arm of the Calgary's Plan to End Homelessness. I chair the board there. I'm able to use some of my business experience in a way that really, I think, is kind of a missionary kind of way. And I can tell this story about my job in a way that you walk out of here thinking, he's got a dream job. And I can also, and that'd be the truth. And I could also tell you the truth, and you'd walk out and say, oh my gosh, I'm glad I am not him. Because they're both the truth. And we walk through our lives, and the truth is sometimes, you know, it's not great. Sometimes it is great, but there's a bigger reality to that. And we sometimes have to look back on those milestones to remind us that, you know what, that bigger reality that sometimes we see and sometimes we don't is always there. So God is always there with us. Sometimes we know it, and sometimes we don't. And I wasn't really sure exactly what I was supposed to share this morning. I've gone off notes, but hopefully that's of some interest and help to you. So thanks a lot for having me here, and appreciate it.
Thanks, David. Thanks for sharing part of your story with us today. I'm just going to close in prayer, so let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we do thank you today for the opportunity to be here. Lord, to take a pause in our week and recognize that, Lord God, we need to focus on the things you're doing in our world and not just what we're doing in our world. Father, we thank you for the opportunity you give us to minister to people every day. And Lord, I pray that you would strengthen each person for that task even now. In Christ's name, amen. God bless, and we'll see you next week.